to watch that because I'm gonna watch the joint Zoom made by the Palestinian. Palestinian history. Is she talking this one?
Palestinian cities in the 1920s and 30s were much like Egyptian, Lebanese, and other Middle Eastern cities at the time. Agriculture and trade thrived. Urban life prospered, but all that changed in 1948. Palestine disappeared from the map with the establishment of the State of Israel. A whole way of life was lost. This film is about the lost cities
You wanna watch this with me? Palestine before 1948. It's live.
سنة 48 تم القضاء على المدينة الفلسطينية لتكريس الدعاوى الصهيونية بشأن أن فلسطين هي أرض جدباء من الناحية الثقافية، من ناحية حراك المدينة الفلسطينية، لأن أكثر شيء يمكن أن يبرهن على وجود شعب فلسطيني في فلسطين هو المدينة الفلسطينية، هو الإنتاج الثقافي الذي كان يبدعه الأدباء والمثقفون في إطار المدينة الفلسطينية.
الغالبية الساحقة اليوم من الفلسطينيين في إسرائيل ولدوا بعد 48 بعد النكبة، وهم لم يعرفوا ولم يشاهدوا أو يتلمسوا تجربة المدينة الفلسطينية لأنها انقضى عليها في 48 مع النكبة.
احنا ولدنا وعشنا في فضاء محدود لدرجة أننا لم نستشعر الخسارة. من لم يعش فلسطين قبل 48 وولد إلى فضاء وحيز محدود ومجزأ وسقف واطي لم يستشعر الخسارة.
الجرح الفلسطيني ومحاولة محو الذاكرة واضح جدا في الحيز الفلسطيني، في الحيز المدني، في الحيز اليومي تبع الفلسطيني، بالشارع، بالدكاني، بالمنطقة الثقافية، بالمعهد الثقافي، بمعهد الموسيقى، لأنه كان في هاي الأمور كلياتها ألغيت.
الخسارة تبدو واضحة لما أنت تسمع الناس اللي عايشوا التاريخ الفلسطيني قبل 48 اللي بالنسبة لهم كانوا ينزلوا يسهروا بحيفا بنوادي أو يحضروا فيلم سينما، يناموا وثاني يوم يستقلوا التاكسي من ساحة الحناطير ذاتها، نفس ساحة الحناطير، خلال ساعتين أن يكونوا في بيروت في الجامعة الأمريكية في بيروت. وبالتالي كانت الحياة المدينية أيضا مفتوحة على أفقها. وبالتالي الذي حدث في عام 48 هو ليس فقط خسارة هذه المدن، إنما خسارة هذه العلاقة مع العالم العربي المفتوح.
كان في أستاذ فرنسي حاضر محاضرة عن الآخر، إنه كيف نتحمل الآخر. عم بحكي لليهود هو إنه كيف تتحملوا الآخر، والآخر حضرته سماه ليترونجي بالفرنساوي، ليترونجي الغريب. وأنا قاعدة أسمع رح أنجن، أنا صرت الغريب وهن أهل البلاد وبدهم كيف يتعاملوا معي أنا الآخر الغريب. أبوي عبد الرؤوف قرمان كان أكثر متخصص للتجارة. عمي كان أكثر ملهي للنظرة البعيدة، لتأسيس أعمال جديدة للعائلة، صناعة، لاتصالات اجتماعية سياسية. في البلدية كان نائب رئيس البلدية، هو اللي راح وقابل روتنبرغ لما دخل الكهرباء لإبطن، وحفروا آبار. طبعا ما كانش في مي للري لأنه بده يعمل مزرعة. احنا هون المسؤولين، ابوي وعمي فتحوا بير في ابطن، بير في برك الرهو اللي هي جنب ابطن، إلنا كمان ارض هناك، حفر الابار مشان يطلعوا المي الارتوازيه للري. فالقنوات تنفتح على البيارات، وكان في خيل وكان في بقر، وفتحوا عملوا محلبة كبيرة، عملوا يخور للبقر. الحاج طاهر قرمان كان يستورد بقر هولندي.
فلسطين تاريخيا منذ العهد العثماني يعني كانت تصدر المحاصيل الزراعية إلى البلاد العربية المجاورة وحتى إلى أماكن أبعد مثل إسطنبول وغيرها. فهذه المحاصيل الزراعية مثل القمح والشعير والسمسم والذرة والقطن في مرحلة معينة أيام ظاهر العمر مثلا، وأضيف إلها في القرن التاسع عشر محاصيل حديثة نسبيا مثل الحمضيات. برتقال يافا أصبح مشهور في الغرب في مدن مثل برلين ولندن وباريس وغيرها منذ 1865 66 وما بعدها.
بتذكر وقت الحمضيات نطلع مع إننا كان أصدقاء في العيلة زي بيت دمياني، بيت حبيب، نطلع عندهم على البيارات في بيت دجن وادي حنين، تفرج كيف بيلفوا البردقان بالورق وبحطوا بالصناديق الخشب، هذا اللي كانوا يشحنوه. لسه أنا بتذكر لما فتحوا شارع كانوا يسموه قبل شارع فيصل، هلا بيقولوا له شارع يهودا يمين. هذا افتتحوه وقت الانجليز، الاشغال العامه public works department، خصوصي للتركات اللي كانوا يجيبوا الحمضيات من حوالي يافا، من بيت دجن وادي حنين، من هون بالصناديق البردان من يافا.
البيارات بديت تكبر لما اجت الموتورات. قبل كانت الساقية ترمي لها 15-20 كوب ساعة، فيزرعوا بيارة 10-15 دلم. هذا أنا ما لحقتوش أشتغل فيه. لما أجت الموتورات وأجت الطرمبات صار اللي بده 100 كوب يطلع، اللي بده 150 كوب يطلع. صارت البيارات تكبر من الثلاثينات وانت ماشي، بيارات 200 و300 و500 دلم البيارة.
سنة 39 كان مرة في يافا واحدة بالمينا 45 سفينة، 46 سفينة شحن حمضيات.
ينزل على المينا سآلة محطوطة هيك عن الرصيف على قلب الجرم، برضو ينزل بالإيدين، ناس بالجرم تأخذ وتستف ناس من برا تأخذ وترمي على السقالة، الجرم ينتلي ينسحب يطلع على البابور، ناس في قلب البابور تستف، كله بالإيدين. وهذه بدها عمال، المشغل القطع الواحد مع التعباية تاعته الصغير 60-70 بني آدم على الأقل. في مشاغل أكبر تيجي العمال المصريين السوريين، أردن، يمن، مراكش، يشتغلوا في فلسطين.
يافا نموها الرئيسي كمدينة فلسطينية اللي أصبحت هي المدينة الفلسطينية في فترة الانتداب يعني يعود إلى عدة عوامل، بينها وأهم عامل هو وجود الميناء. يافا كانت بوابة فلسطين بكل ما يتعلق بالتجارة، التصدير والاستيراد، وهذا كان يخدم قطاعات أخرى طبعا بطبيعة الحال، في القطاع الزراعي، القطاع الصناعي، وجود منتجات للتصدير أثر بشكل حاسم على نمو يافا وتحولها إلى مركز رئيسي.
تقدر تقول عسقلان كانت لواء، غزة كانت لواء، حيفا لواء، القدس لواء. فهذه المراكز الكبيرة ولكن كلها تصب بيافا، لأنه يافا مركز الصناعة، مركز التجارة، مركز العمل، مركز فلسطين.
نعرفها عن وجود عائلات ومبادرين يعني وصلوا بالثراء على صعيد فلسطين، كانوا من أثرياء فلسطين وعاشوا بحيفا، عائلات مثل الخياط، مثل قرمان أصحاب أطيان وأراضي، وثم انتقلوا إلى عدد من الصناعات.
كان في شركة قرمان ديك وصلت للدخان، بعدين كان في معمل الثلج، كان في مصانع قهوة لنا أسهم فيها، كان في الملح كان يجينا معبى بأكياس خام على اسم عبد الرؤوف قرمان. الأناديل ازازات الضوء بتذكر عليها عبد الرؤوف قرمان مختوم. حلاوة قرمان كانت مشهورة بالفعل، ألذ حلاوة كانت تصنع في البلاد.
تأسست في يافا بالزمانات شركتين للسفريات، شركة العلمين وشركة حداد. أول فرضنا يافا القدس، يافا الرمل، حيفا، يعني داخل فلسطين. بعد سنة سنتين أكتر قويات عملوا لبيروت، فكنا وقت نسافر لما كنا نروحنا على الجامعة كنا نسافر بشركة العالمين من يافا بشقة بوستروس من وراء شقة البوسطة، كان هناك لهم التاكسيات يوقفوا لبيروت بليرة فلسطيني.
كان في هذه المدينة تمايز اجتماعي، كان فيها علاقات على أساس أنماط العلاقات الرأسمالية، كان فيها هناك نقابات عمالية، وهذه أيضا من مظاهر المدينة. كانت متطورة تكنولوجيا مقارنة بالتطور التكنولوجي الذي شهدته كل منطقة الشرق الأوسط. يعني مثلا هناك سكك حديدية، هناك كهرباء.
سكة الحديد هنا موجودة لحيفا، وبعدين في خط لبير السبع وخط للعريش. بتذكر كانت ستي في القاهرة ساكنين بالشبرا، وعماتي كانوا هناك، وطلبوا من أبوي إنه أروح أنا وأختي ويشوفونا، يعني نروح. عند يومتها والدي ركبنا السكة الحديد، ما راحش معنا، احنا كنا صغار. في اللي كانوا يشتغلوا بالترين وصاهم علينا، وصلونا للعريش، من العريش قطعونا للسكة تبعت مصر، وبمحطة القاهرة كان أولاد عمي يستنونا.
يافا كانت مصانع، كانت محادب، كانت يا زلمة كانوا اللي بيحدوا الخيل بيافا كل إسرائيل اليوم فيهاش حداية خيل قدهم. كانوا عندنا محادب. شركة السكب مثلا كانت تسكب طرمبات، كنا نعمل سكب. حتى إلى يومنا هذا بتلاقي بعيد عنك بغطي المجاري مكتوب عليه شركة السكب الفلسطينية. هذا سكبنا، سكب الشركة بتاعتنا، سكبت موديل طرمبات سنترافوجالي بلونجر، سكب شركة السكب.
في يافا كان هناك طبعا الكثير من المشاريع التي تبني شخصية المدينة، في مقدمها طبعا المشروعات الاقتصادية، ولكن الأهم من ذلك المشروعات الثقافية والاجتماعية. يعني كان هناك يصدر المئات من الصحف في فلسطين في فترة الانتداب. بلغ عدد الصحف التي صدرت 206 صحف، بين صحف يومية وأسبوعية ومجلات، يعني منابر. طبعا أهم هذه الصحف كانت تصدر في يافا وفي حيفا.
أبوي كان قارئ من القراء اللي عندهم مكاتب. فرض الجريمة لازم تخش فلسطين. كانت أخبار محلية، اسمها الأخبار المحلية. الزرع السنة كان خصابه كذا، البردقان كان إنتاجه كذا، الأطاني إنتاجها كذا، الصناعة بيافا عملت كذا، كلها أخبار محلية. وعند 39 صارت الجرائد مشتغلة بالحرب.
كان في فلسطين قبل عام 48 أحزاب كثيرة مثل الحزب العربي بقيادة الحاج أمين الحسيني والحسينيين، ومقابله حزب الدفاع للنشاشبيين. كان هناك أحزاب مختلفة، ولكنها هي كانت الأحزاب الأضعف، هي في المعارضة. منها مثلا حزب الاستقلال، وكان هناك طبعا عصبة التحرر الوطني اللي هي تنظيم شيوعي فلسطيني.
كل الحركة الشيوعية كان لديها وعي نقابي متقدم، وكان هناك عدد من أماكن العمل التي يوجد فيها تجمعات كبيرة للعمال العرب. وأيضا في فترة الانتداب كان هناك وعي لأهمية النضال النقابي، فبادر الشيوعيين في ذلك الوقت إلى إقامة مؤتمر العمال العرب من أجل تنظيم العمال العرب للدفاع عن حقوقهم النقابية في إطار علاقات العمل الرأسمالية التي كانت في فلسطين في إبان فترة الانتداب. ووجد هذا التنظيم من المناسب أن تكون لديه جريدة ناطقة باسمه، لأن هذه الجريدة كانت سبيله إلى الانتشار، لا سيما في أوساط العمال وأيضا في أوساط الجمهور الواسع.
كانت تجينا من مصر غير جريدة الدفاع عن فلسطين، تجينا روز اليوسف، تجينا السينما والناس، تجينا صباح الخير، أكتوبر ما كان اشتغلت، كانت تجينا جريدة اسمها البعكوكة، كلها تطقيس ومسخرة. فاللي ما يشتريش المجلات وتيجي روايات الجيب، اللي ما بدوش يشتريهم لأنه كانت الواحدة بقرشين وبقرشين ونص وغالية علينا. ففي مكاتب بيافا يوم الجمعة تروح على المكتبة طيقك ساعتين ثلاثة الجريدة اللي بدك إياها تقراها.
كان هناك تبادل ثقافي بين المدن الفلسطينية ولا سيما يافا وحيفا والقدس أيضا، وبين النشاط الثقافي الذي كان يجري في العالم العربي، إلى درجة مثلا أن مغنية كبيرة مثل أم كلثوم قامت بإحياء عدد من الحفلات الغنائية في يافا. كذلك مثلا عميد المسرح العربي يوسف وهبي عرض مسرحياته أيضا على مسارح يافا.
حيفا كانت مدينة عامرة، وكانوا يمرقوا فيها الفنانين من كل البلاد. لما يجي مثلا عبد الوهاب، أم كلثوم، حتى هن أعطوها اسم كوكب الشرق لأم كلثوم بحيفا. وعلي الكسار كان بحيفا على مسرح سينما عين دور، هاي السينما العربية اللي كانت تجيب أفلام عربية ونشاطات عربية.
كانت سينما الرشيد جنب السرايا، سينما فاروق جنب السينما الحمراء، السينما الحمراء، سينما نبيل اللي اسمها اليوم نوجا، سينما الرشيد اللي اسمها سليل. دول 5 سينمات شغالين.
معروف أن المدينة الفلسطينية هي من أولى المدن التي أنتجت سينما فلسطينية. يعني هناك من يقول أن كل تاريخ السينما العربية بدأ من فلسطين على يد الأخوين لاما مثلا، بعد ذلك انتقلت إلى أقطار أخرى مثل مصر والشام.
أوقات فيلم عربي زي فيلم لأسمهان ولا فريد يقعد 3-4 أشهر بالسينما يلعب، ودائما مليان ناس يروحوا. في ناس اللي يشوفوا الفيلم 3-4 مرات، زي بتذكر الله يرحمه أختي قبل كانت تشوف فيلم أسمهان، تحب أغاني أسمهان، تحضره 4-5 مرات الفيلم.
في فيلم حضرناه بالسينما الحمراء أظن كان اسمه غرام وانتقام لأسمهان،
وأنا سمعت إنه هذا الفيلم هي ماتت بآخره. بتذكر هربت من المدرسة، أخذت أختي اللي أصغر مني وأخوي ورحنا، وهذا اللي كشفني إنه أخوي شانته أجت على البيت. طب وينه هو؟ وين عبد؟ عبد مش هون. عبد وين عبد؟ بعدين لما زرقنا بعرفش كيف إجينا، رحنا بسيارة بعدين ولا باص. وين كنتوا؟ علقت أنا لأني أنا الكبير وأنا اللي أخذتهم.
عندي ذاكرة منيحة يعني حافظ أغاني الأفلام لليوم.
كيف؟
مثلا مثل فيلم صباح، أغاني صباح تغني فيه بتقول شربة ورد وقد وخد، فيش في الدنيا دي حد، نونو بنت 17 إنما قمر 14، بصت تكوي 18 أو 20 على حسب العد.
Sabah, the Lebanese singer, appeared in nearly 100 movies and is still fresh in Ismail Shahada's memory. Palestine's cinemas and theaters were alive, but the impact of 1948 on both would be crushing. 1930s and early 40s, life in the cities of Palestine was full and active, typified by Jaffa with its busy port and commercial center.
Okay, we're going to stop right now for a minute. Welcome. Hey, hi, Phil. Hi, Frank. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Kipak. Alhamdulillah. So great to see everyone. And I think that film was very, very moving. And I need to see it again. I didn't know that Palestine had really begun the Arab film movement, that they were the pioneers in Arab film. So this documentary by Al Jazeera, I cut it off. I haven't watched the whole thing because of time, but I think it's really worthwhile reviewing because it provides so much fascinating information. The film mentioned Falastin, the newspaper, and I have a short PowerPoint that I did because this paper was so important. I was fortunate enough in 2011 to be in Amman and be able to attend the international 100th year birthday celebration of Falastin held at the Columbia University Research Center in Amman. I learned so much stuff at this conference. One of the things that is I didn't put down, hi, welcome, Steve, hey, hi, how are you? You have to tell a joke at the end, Steve. I know you have a good joke to tell us at the end. My very good friend, dear friend, Steve, who's a phenomenal writer, warrior for truth and justice, and understands math totally and economics. But anyhow, this newspaper was one of the facts I found out at the conference was that, did you know that Gaza gave women the right to vote before America? You know, I mean, we are so ignorant about Palestine. We have no clue. So this conference was so informative. So I'm going to just share with you a little PowerPoint I made about Falastin. The pictures. There's young man selling pictures. There's a Falastin young cover. These are the founders, Isaac and Yosef in the front row, and here's the edition. And here's Falastin headquarters, Jaffa left, East Jerusalem right. Ta-da! Now, the history of Falastin is really interesting. It was amongst a handful of newspapers to have emerged from the region following the 1908 Young Turk Revolution in the Ottoman Empire, which had lifted press censorship. The newspaper was initially focused on the Orthodox Renaissance, a movement that was aimed to weaken the Greek clerical hegemony over the Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Jerusalem, so that its vast financial resources could be utilized instead of sending it back to Greece to improve education for the Arab Christians of Palestine. Other topics addressed in the newspaper included modernization, reforms, and improving the welfare of the peasants. Its geographic scope was the Mutasam Sadi Fate, or district, primarily Jerusalem and Jaffa, but also Hebron, Jericho, and Gaza. The scope later to include all of Palestine, and here's the declaration of the Young Turk Revolution by Christian and Muslim leaders of the Ottoman millets, which are independent courts of law, in 1908. The family demonstrates the sophistication of many Palestinians who are, where the propaganda is Palestinians are backward. Well, Issa was a graduate of the American University of Beirut, worked in many places, came from a family known for its intellect, politics, and literature. They were also a rich family. They made money from investing in olive oil and soap trading. His cousin published a very famous paper, and we don't know that much about the brother Yusuf, except that he was considered a very impressive writer. And during World War I, both were exiled to Anatolia. And on the left is a picture of the father, Daoud el-Issa, with King Ali of Hejaz in Haifa. The family was very close to all the Hashemite monarchs, very, very close, and visited them in Jordan at Ragatan Palace, and worked very hard to keep a communication open between the greater district, which was called Syria at the time, and later Jordan and Palestine. Isa became the head of King Faisal's royal court after the Arab kingdom of Syria was established in 1920. After the kingdom's defeat by the French forces the same year, Isa then returned to Jaffa, where he was allowed to republish Falastin, and his son later took over in 1938. I love this cartoon. It was 20 suspensions of Falastin by Ottomans and British. On the left is showing Zionism as a crocodile under the protection of a British officer telling the Palestinians, "Shh, don't be afraid. I will swallow you peacefully." Palestine, now this is important. This is very important to understand this. Palestine distinguished between Jews, who they considered brothers because they were their neighbors, they grew up together, they lived together, they worked together, and Zionists, who they saw as a political party determined to take rights away from the Arabs. Israel permanently entered in the newspaper in 1967. Its influence was huge. Its editor, Yusuf, was described as a founder of modern journalism in Palestine. Al-Muqattam, one of the biggest papers in Egypt, commented that when Yusuf wrote anything, the heads of Arabs in all major cities bend to the editorials of Ustad Yusuf al-Isa. Other thing that's interesting to note is Falastin championed women's rights, encouraging their education in many editorials and columns for women. It was dedicated for equality for all in Palestine, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And here's a picture of a women's rights movement meeting in Jerusalem, 1920s, 1930s. And here's some pages. What's interesting about Palestine, and that's typical of Arab press in general, it's very biting and satirical. That's why they throw so many of them in jail all the time. At the top is a letter from Einstein. Einstein had a ongoing correspondence with Palestine in terms of working out harmony between the Jews and the Arabs, and also developing an understanding of why Jews wanted to go there to flee the Nazis in the 30s and 40s, and that there should be a space made for them, and which Palestine agreed to. Palestine wanted to provide refuge for Jews fleeing from Nazis, but they didn't want to lose their own rights. And here's an open letter regarding Zionism again, to the British. And it starts, it is now beyond doubt that the Zionists are working to silence the voice of my paper and to effect my deportation. So they were in a big struggle for survival, for writing things like the execution of the victims, the Balfour Declaration. And on the left, this cartoon summarizes the mentality of the Falastin, using humor and satire with biting criticism of what they saw as corruption. And on the left is this picture of this floating Turk, who's Pasha, J. Pasha, to Sir Wauchope, the British general here. And Pasha is whispering to Sir Wauchope, "Many, many thanks. The Arabs have now forgotten my tyranny and blessed my memory." So there's a wonderful, wonderful sense of humor and going over these old newspapers, and they're on the web. You can look them up. Is very informative. This conference I went to was like 3 days. It was fabulous. And so I just urge all of you, if you're interested, to look up some of this stuff. It's extremely interesting. Now I welcome Kelvin. First of all, does anybody have any questions about what I was about Falastin or the documentary I showed? Anybody want to have any comments or questions before Kelvin comes in? Okay, all right. Well, Kelvin.
Oh, hi, how are you?
To talk about his work.
I think I'm going to do a screen share on some of it. So I've got the screen share thing. I've never done it before on Zoom. Well, I'm going to show you some of the pictures from Palestine during the black and white period, which starts at, let's say, the beginning of photography. I think the earliest photographs go back to 1840s. Jerusalem was one of the places that people wanted to photograph when they first went out on expeditions doing photography. So a lot of the earliest photographs from this region, which was quite fascinating to the places they invented cameras and went off to use them, was Palestine and Egypt, which is why the Holy Land is more well documented than so I put my screen share here.
Oh, go ahead.
Host disabled participant screen sharing though.
No, I didn't.
Why it just says it. That's what I've got on my screen right now. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So it's all right. Well, if you see the settings,
I'll fix it.
It's all right. So yeah, more than Iraq or places like that, and also you have to think about the cameras going out. So, you know, traveling across these regions, a few got as far as Mecca. You have a few photos of Mecca, but the photos of Mecca normally start around the beginning of about the 1880s, 1890s. But if you go back further, you'll find pictures of especially Jerusalem.
Kelvin, it should be fixed.
It's fixed?
Yeah.
All right. So what do you see now on your screen for me?
I see you.
No, wait a second. Which one do I want? Is it this one? No,
not
this one. I'm going to put, yeah. Okay, so now I can see you and I can see my screen. Well, I'll get rid of my folders so you don't have to look at my folders here. We can just look at this nice picture in the background.
That's the same as the painting. That's the same view as the painting that I have in my background of Isam.
Yeah, this is a photograph from the 1930s, I think. What I like about this is that they've chosen the roof from which you can pretty much see the same size the dome of the church and the dome of the rock. There is so much to say. I can speak for 3 hours, and I don't know really what to focus on from all of that. To be honest, we were mentioning conflicting narratives. I found a few things. I just looked at the YouTube, and the comments were like, did you know that the Jews were a majority in this year and this year and this year? And in 1930, there were a lot more Jews than Arabs. And then I found another page, which is like the historical censuses. And somehow between 1 year of a census of one group and the next year of a census of another group, all the balances and proportions are completely changed because they recorded them differently according to their interests. So you have sometimes it says anyway. I mean, there was, as we understand, a Muslim majority in Jerusalem for most of the time until very recently. Although some of the reports said otherwise because that was in their political interest. So I'm going to show you some anomalous pictures for a start. Let me just pull up. I've got so many things, but to be honest, now I'm livid about what is going on in the world with the cyber hegemony, which is being enforced on everybody. We won't have any choice about Zionism, politics, money, food, or anything if it carries on like this. And I believe that we urgently all have to stand up against it. And yes, to be on subject, it's all based from Tel Aviv. So that's the research I've been doing, and it's quite upsetting. And that includes anything you see on any news channel, any social media, all run by algorithms, and those algorithms can make things go any way they want to if people play ball with these tracking apps. Anyway, here's a map of Jerusalem from 1930. This was, I like the American colony. I've been using a lot of their pictures because they photographed on glass plate slides, and the difference between early prints, like for example Bonfils prints were printed on glass plate slides and they were printed onto pieces of paper. They were a Lebanese family,
Unfortunately, in the times of not having much things to build up Lebanon, they used the glass plate slides to make windows for the houses and wipe them all off. Michel Tarragon told me that. So they wiped all the ink off and used them as windows. Some of them might have had pretty windows and kept the pictures of Jerusalem casting nice shadows onto the floors and stuff. But we've only got the prints survived from those. One of the things that the glass plate slides is there's a lot more information than was normally printed in the size of the earliest photography. So what I can do now, especially if I have really good scans of them, is even they could have done at that time, if they had printed them 1/2 meter, they might have had still more information until 1/2 meter. But all that was actually seen was the size of a normal, those early print papers, which is kind of about, I don't know, what, 30 centimeters maximum, something like that. So there's a lot more information in the photos than you'd normally just see from the original prints even, or looking at the negatives. So what I've been doing with my work with the restoration is taking the full resolution scans. I use the term full resolution, meaning if there's any information there, it's there in the file. Even if I scan, I end up with 1 gigabyte files to start on. If I have the choice, but most institutions won't do that. But there are interpolation methods which can make a natural resizing up, so to get the most information out. And a lot of that is by the light dark gradients, and also there's a lot of kind of hidden details within gradients that you'd never normally see. So this is Jerusalem from the 1930s. Now, I've removed, actually, from this version of it, the word Temple Mount, because it actually was Haram al-Sharif for a local politeness. But you can see here that they've done a great work. I think there was a combination here of a theodolite and the aerial photography, because in the same year as this, the American colony flew over Jerusalem and took lots and lots of photos from every angle. So the actual achievement of the creation of this map, to be honest, I think is phenomenal. You didn't have a Google Maps, you didn't have a Google Earth. It was all mapped out on, you see, on these quadrants. So you can see that.
We don't see the map, Kelvin.
You don't see it? It should be on your screen.
No.
It's not.
We only see Palestine. The picture was.
No, well, why it's not showing? Well, that's weird because it's on my screen. That okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah, now it's here. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so it's the upper screen. So I have to. All right, I can do it on that screen. Let's do that then. All right. I thought that the other screen was working well. All right. Okay, we're right. So here's the. You see the different quarters of Jerusalem. What you would see at that time is that the most of the houses were inside the walls of the old city. And you can see that in the photographs as well. There were houses in Mount Scobus, or mountains in there were houses in the Mount of Olives, or houses in the surrounding hills. Some very beautiful places around there. But most of the houses were inside the old city until it started to build up with the incoming Zionism. And so, yeah, where are we? Okay, I'll pull some photographs up then if you want to see. One thing I would say is that we're talking about conflicting narratives, and that's a subject in itself. There's a kind of thing that has obviously been laughed out of court, which is that there were we've got 9,000 pictures to prove there was nobody living in Palestine before the Jewish immigrations, which I think is kind of ridiculous kind of Zionist dialogue. And there's so much misinformation. I spent 1.5 years debating those guys on Quora, and I realized that actually the misinformation is not even that they believe that, it's what they're told to say, and they do it in order to enhance the current modern Zionist dialogues. So even if they know it not to be true, they will say it anyway. That seems to be pretty much in the manner of Israeli politicians. So one of the things at that time was that there were 9,000 photographs to show that there were no people in Palestine before. Well, the reason for that is the earliest photographs used to have a very long exposure time. So if you go back before about the 1880s, every single photograph has no people, or they're those kind of Victorian pictures of people, like you say, stand exceptionally still for half a minute and don't move. And if there's any movement at all you'd see instead of a person was a blur. So the reason that the earliest photographs of Palestine don't have any people in them is simply because of the exposure time of the pictures. Now, one thing I wanted to say is that we can learn things from the old photos, which we don't know otherwise, unless they've been recorded in books or from oral testimonies and things like that. And the nice thing about the 1840s and all those kind of things is that, this is a little bit, is that, you know, basically it's before the oldest people alive who can give their testimonies remember. So there's things that maybe even were distant memories for them. And the curiosity that I discovered was that the entirety of the old city was surrounded by, hang on, why am I not getting the next picture when is there an arrow on this app? Does anybody know this app? Is it this? No, okay, I just have to pull them up one at a time. Surrounded by cactuses. So you've got here the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and you see that if you walked for the Mount of Olives down today, you almost wouldn't be able to get to this corner, but this is a forest of cactuses. It's incredible. And all these old photographs, I mean, there was really a forest of cactuses around the old city. So people even from Jerusalem don't know that. Here, you see this is the Golden Gate surrounded by cactuses. Here's a close-up of the Haram al-Sharif. Also, here you are, surrounded by cactuses. And then there's a very nice guy. Where is he? Wait, where's the guy? Here he is. I love this one. This is the guy sitting there with his argila at that time. Can you see him? He's wonderful, just sitting under a cactus, as you would if you were just walking around the old city with your argila at that time. So I don't know, really, I've got so much work. I have no idea what to show. I've got hundreds of pictures of Palestine. I'll show you some of my work. And what I'd like to actually show you is the collection of Mr. Samir Deis, which you will probably never see again or never have seen before, because he's a collector in Amman. There's a few collectors in Amman. There's Dr. Hisham Al-Khatib, who you probably know about. Just over the border, of course, in Jerusalem is Jean-Michel Tarragon, who has collected, well, at the last count was 26,000 photographs, but it tends to go up by another 1,000 every so often. And he collected them all by himself over the last 40 years through all of the church communities. So he has pretty much one of the biggest collections of photographs of Palestine that exists. They haven't been put out online. You always said, oh, well, we've got to keep collecting them first. And I'm like, okay. But he has an enormous amount of photographs. A lot of them of the early families. So we know a lot about the early Christian families from the photographs of Jean-Michel Tarragon. And again, they go back to the earliest times of photography. One of the things that I really am impressed by him is that if he finds a photograph, which sometimes the photographs documentation is not that accurate. They might have been documented, for example, the American colony. Some of them might not have even been documented in the Holy Land. Some of the ones that went back to England were not documented on site, so they would have guessed. So often you'd have two pictures with the different titles and different dates, which are the same photograph, which came through different channels. And Jean-Michel Tarragon, if he finds a photograph and he doesn't know where it is or who's in it, he will go around the different communities asking people information until he can identify what it actually is, which is an incredible amount of work to do. So this is a beautiful photograph of Jerusalem from Mount Scopus, looking over the old city. Again, you can see that surrounding the old city itself. So if you imagine going there by a camel or something, you know, really you just arrive and you see the city on top of the hill, and it's just incredible. And it was like that for thousands of years until all these new buildings and settlements, until they all decided that this whole region had to be countries, which it never used to before, and has made all the problems that we have until now, because the people who make countries wanted something from here, unfortunately. So here's the old city from 3 glass plate negatives combined by digital stitching, which took about, I don't know, 8 days or something like that. There's a few of these big ones. If you go close, you can see pretty much every house from that view. See a lot of the churches. We've had this, Jean-Michel Tarragon helped me to date this to 1900, but it's actually 1899 or 1900 because of the state of repair of the Franciscans' roof, which was documented to have been under repair during those 2 years. So it's interesting how you can learn things by looking at the photographs and the dates that you might not find in history books. So I think that, you know, there is a historical documentaries, which again come from testimonies and come from things that have been written. A lot of the early books that I've seen of explorers that came around this area, say explorers, because the first people writing in English were probably Victorians or just before that. But, you know, the earliest books would actually probably have been in Arabic. But for the books that I know of, you know, they had a very biblical way of seeing the region. Now, that transferred into the Zionist dialogue in one direction. In another direction was quite innocent, because when they arrived in the Holy Land, the first impressions that they had were scenes from the Bible that they had from their understanding of the region and in their heads. So this is a close-up of that. Here's the old city, you can see. So not much changes in the old city. I mean, right now, if you were to take a photo, you'd have loads of tower blocks behind and stuff like that, big road down here, but you still do have the Muslim cemetery, thanks God. And there's is it the Dung Gate, which was closed up at one point? And there's a really, yeah, I think Jackie talked about that. I mean, the best history of Jerusalem is Jackie's 3 videos. To be honest, it's amazing. But there was something about Allenby coming through one of the gates. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's the bigger version of the whole valley. And again, here you can really see how everything was inside the old city, right? I mean, this is also, you could also see by that time, they'd chopped down the cactuses so you could get through and have, you know, the road going through and stuff like that. You've seen a lot of the early photos of the Middle East, that the way that towns and cities were laid out. I've got early photos of Amman, for example. There really were no straight roads because they didn't need them, because they didn't have cars, because they went everywhere by camels. So the kind of straight road thing has also impacted the development of the region from how it was if you jump back to just before the last century. So most of these photographs are, let's say, between the turn of the last century, a little bit later. This is a beautiful photo. What I love about the American colony as well, their sense of composition was amazing. And also they basically, people would say, oh, they were spies or something like that. They absolutely weren't, because they actually believed the end of the world was coming in their lifetime, and they wanted to be in Jerusalem for that. So they moved to Jerusalem, and they spent their time supporting their charity work, which was most of their focus, it seems, through the photography and through selling photography. So these pictures, for example, I've had in my exhibition with beautiful, clear detail up to a big size, because again, I say, if they'd printed them at that size, you wouldn't have even seen all the details that are just immediately printable from the glass plate. But the amount that you can get out more is quite spectacular. For example, there's writing on, I don't know if you can see on this resolution of photo, but there is writing on this, this well has got writing on the wall here. Can you see that? The Arabic writing? I don't know if you can see, but there's an inscription here above the well. You can't see on this resolution of photo, I think, but I will promise and confirm to you that you couldn't see that. You couldn't see that without digital technology to bring out the gradient between the dark and the light of the different sides of the writing. So that's another thing that we can do today with the digital tools that we couldn't do then, which is to be able to bring out, for example, text that has faded too much that you can see it and things like that, just by focusing on the exact point of the gradients where those differences and edges are, and then enhancing and working on those things. So this is a beautiful photograph of the Garden of Gethsemane at night. Again, the artistry is stunning. The artistry of the original photography as well is stunning. These, of course, some of the oldest trees in the region from the Garden of Gethsemane, which is said to have been there at the time of Christ. And the Dome of the Rock, again, here, unfortunately, I don't have the resolution up on the screen because these are not the print files, but you can actually read the writing here around the outside now, thanks to the enhancement of the digital technology, the writing on the outside of the Dome of the Rock going around the outside, which you couldn't before. And this tree was just black, and so you find all the details and things like that. Now, I don't know what to look. Here's a beautiful photograph. This is the Holy Fire coming out at Easter of the Holy Sepulchre, and you can just start to see the flames going around here and all the massive quick movement of people. You see the movement of people going around. Well, say in those early photographs, if you had any people at all, they just looked like blurs like this. There's the Holy Fire, two women with the Holy Fire. This almost looks like it could be 1,000 years ago if it wasn't for this street sign here and this red brick roof on this side. But this is the camels coming from the other side of Amman, actually. I mean, they did a great desecration to that part of Amman because it used to be a wheat growing area for the whole region, and now it's full of villas because the refugees brought money. So the town council said, yeah, give us some and you can build villas. But that area was not called the airport road traditionally. It was the fields of Moab, and the fields of Moab was the breadbasket of the Middle East. So all these camels would have been bringing the wheat from this side of the river where the biggest wheat fields were. And that would supply the whole of Jerusalem. And of course, they make yummy, yummy, yummy things in Jerusalem at that time as well as now, the Arabic, the native cultures. This again, beautiful photo. I didn't touch this for ages because I thought I'm going to have to get rid of all these little scratches on here. But I found out that they weren't scratches, they were snow. They'd actually captured the snow. So that's a beautiful photograph as well. Here's children skiing in the snow. I think one thing that you really get from these early photos as well, in almost all of the pictures, is the population density was an incredible amount lower than now. I mean, you can't take a photograph there now without it being full of people. And here's the Mount of Olives and all the olive trees going down. And that's 1942, that's later. That's also before the really built up starting. You see, you can see it starting to build up at the back there. The Jewish Jerusalem, you can start to see it there, but you wouldn't see it, but not that much. Like another picture in the snow, in the Mount of Olives. Is there anything particular that you want to see? Because I really have like thousands of pictures and hundreds of work. So this is beautiful. You've got the Victoria lamppost here. So that kind of puts a date on this picture. So that's one of the things that's interesting about dating the photos is that you would often, if you didn't have a date, you might be able to identify the date approximately by details. So for example, that style of lamppost would have had a beginning and an end period that you could say, okay, that was probably this and this year. Or the cars, especially when you have cars, different models of cars changed each year. So if you have cars, you can often tell the year of the photographs by the cars. This is beautiful, and I remember walking down there last time I was in Jerusalem, staying on the Mount of Olives. It's a lovely road, but now it's a road, but at that time it was just a path. You see, it's absolutely, it's crucifying me what they're doing to all these things now. The whole of Palestine, they're cutting down all of the olive trees. I mean, this whole thing about the Second World War being the excuse for the Zionism. Well, the Zionism started a long time before that. The numbers of the Second World War were, by all accounts, very massively conflated. And there was nothing about endlessly moving Jewish people from anywhere you can find them in order to fill out the population and evicting everyone else. So unfortunately, I think a lot of people there would want peace and would want some solution if they had more understanding, which wasn't based on a completely erroneous education. And if there was time, I'd say the place to start from for peace would be the children's textbooks in Hebrew. But unfortunately, as Phil would probably say, probably no, you know, I mean, it's quite a deep, it's a bubble there. It's a deep programming to get through. And I don't think we've got time. I think that there honestly has to be a revolution there. And the only hope we have is either reassessment of the political situation from stepping back and looking from outside and just actually describing what's going on instead of the terms that it's normally defined in, and just saying, look, you're bombing this and you're doing this and this and this, or the people there realizing they've had enough, and it's and that would take really an awakening, and we have to pray that our little bit of effort sharing information and objectivity and truth will help wherever possible.
Well, I'm going to ask everybody to unmute themselves. And I think these photographs are so gorgeous. And what really I find very interesting as a historian is the value in revealing pictures of days from the details that are lost on you know, on the original print. So Kelvin, you serve a great purpose in getting the facts straight, and in the devil is in the details, as they say, right? So that these details that your technique can reveal is so important to this whole question of Palestine before 1948. I didn't know that about the why there are no figures in the early pictures, is because people didn't stand still. You know, I mean, that's so interesting. Thank you so much.
There's 10 photographs I just want to show you, because you won't get another chance to see them, because I got them from that guy, and I did them at the beginning of the lockdowns, and he just gave me something to do, because I was, you know, everybody was like, what's happening? They're fucking with everyone. And so I want to show you these pictures from Mr. Samir Dehaes, my main language, and one of them, well, this one I colored just because I think it's beautiful, and I wanted to I like the atmosphere so much, I thought that the color would enhance it a bit. I don't know, I like the colors, but this is a rock wall in the Garden of Gethsemane. So Mr. Samir Dehaes just bought an envelope of photos, and they're tiny. They're absolutely tiny. And I'm like, well, if you're going to take photos and develop them, why you develop them like 8 centimeters big or whatever it is? They're almost like double passport photos, not much bigger. And they're like, well, they had to save paper. And I'm like, come on, Yanni, because I mean, but anyway, from those tiny pictures, these survived. So I'm really proud of Samir. He's one of the collectors. I told you, he buys photographs. So he bought them in an auction. And he loved them, and I did some work on it. So that was the original photo. This is stone carving in the wall of the Garden of Gethsemane. Isn't it beautiful? And then I'm only showing you these photos because they're rare, and I don't think you'll get another chance to see them ever. So this is outside one of the doors in Jerusalem. Oh, crikey. Okay, then this is outside. Is it Damascus Gate? Must be Damascus Gate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. It looks also like Lion's Gate as well. So I'm not sure, because Damascus Gate, you go down the steps. Yeah. It looks more like Lion's Gate, actually.
Those steps are new, Frank.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Yes,
I think those steps are new. I really would.
Yeah, maybe you're right, because there's no insignia. There's no lions on. There's no lion. There's no lions on the side. Yeah, I think yes. It can't be a Lion's Gate then, I guess.
And also, one of the things at Damascus Gate is that you see here the orange cellar. I've seen photos where there are huge piles of oranges, like massive piles of oranges. I don't know. The whole city used to eat like bread and oranges, I think, because there was so much. So that was also the place where they used to sit and sell the oranges, just from other photos. But you can't know what else went on. I mean, again, that's the thing, is you have to be careful about photo documentation to prove things, because it's like now you could make a video proving pretty much anything you wanted with the right collection of information and photographs. And that's news, basically. But also, I think at the same, like, you know, when you want to represent something accurately, you can just take the sum of your experience and try and find out what is or your knowledge and find out what is representative of that, because there is so many angles and so many viewpoints of things on there. Oh, just one thing I wanted to tell you, although I don't really want to go there too much, but I got contacted by somebody a couple of days ago because some of the things I'm doing, and this person had just had their thesis of a 90-year-old lady, no, 100-year-old lady from Palestine. She was in Jordan. She's disdained from Essani. she'd interviewed a 100-year-old lady who'd really taken her on. Loved this woman. Done an amazing research project. It was just deleted from Google Documents by Google for hate speech. And this is what you're going to find is, I tell you, if it carries on like this, if people do not kick up and start to say no and speak out loud, in 5-10 years, it's going to be like banned to say Palestine. I tell you, it's so weird what is going on right now.
Actually, when you said the word Palestine, some red flag actually came up on the top of your screen.
Really?
Yeah. Can I interject something here really quickly? I'm looking at a photo from the American colony from 1932, and the shot that you had up looks very similar.
Yeah, they're for the American colony.
Yeah. I'm looking at a shot from 1932. The shot that you were just showing us.
Which one? This one?
No, that one. Yep.
No, this isn't for the American colony. This
No. It's I have a photo from the American colony that I got from the American colony of Damascus Gate in 1932, and that's what it looks like.
Yes, yeah. So it is Damascus Gate. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well, he said that they were estimated about the 1920s. This was an independent traveler who didn't only go to Palestine. She went around the whole region and she just got them in her travel photos. So she is quite objective because she was basically just walking around with her camera. I mean, it's almost like the WhatsApp pictures of 1920s in a way. Somebody just.
Okay, Kelvin, we just have a few minutes, so try to.
Yeah, okay, this is the Bedouin guy. Now, this actually came from a postcard which was in the same collection. That was from Leonard and Landrock, who were very kind of Orientalist, but it's a guy, so you can't change it that much. I don't know where this is exactly. That's not Jerusalem. That's the top of the Holy Sepulchre, I think. And I think this is, I'd say, this way of taking the camels. I mean, there's so much to show. There's thousands of photos, and this is lovely, isn't it? So these just came from these tiny little photos, and they're kind of weird. They're not that well photographed, but they're, look, this is Bethlehem, I'd guess, by the costume. That has a bit more. There's the Mount of Olives in that date. So especially if you look at sequences of the Mount of Olives photos, you could normally tell by the year by comparing them to other photos a lot of the time. I've got a photograph of Palestinian village. Let me just see if I can pull that up, maybe last photo, which nobody has yet been able to tell me where it is. And everybody says, oh, that's my village. I'm like, well, is it? Can you prove it? And they're like, no. And I've looked at thousands of photographs. And I have never seen, and when I found this village photo, I wanted to compare it to other pictures from the American colony, for example, or from some of the Pennsylvania library ones. And I looked for similar features on any of the houses to see if we could actually find that village, because maybe it was a well photographed village, maybe it's somewhere obscure. I want to show you this because it shows Palestinian life. And is it going to open? Wait. Oh, sorry. It will come up. It has to. I know why. My search algorithm. Village. Wait. Sorry. Osama is sitting on my mouse, which he always does.
This work is so important because there's a deliberate campaign on now to erase the history of Palestine. So these photographs are even more urgent.
I don't put anything on my Google Drive anymore. You know, that's sure. That I want to keep. There it is, but it's not.
Oh gosh, that could be hard to identify.
Yeah, that's it. You see, I mean, but it's such a lovely picture, and I don't know whether you see I've got different resolutions on my hard drive. Some of them are very low versions.
What a bridge on the far right. Oh no.
Okay. So here's the bread oven of the village. You see, they all cook bread together. So I mean, this is this thing. I mean, I can talk about that subject as well, but I mean, this idea of the cradle of civilization, that the Western civilization is like its offspring, but it just orphaned itself. And I actually really believe that it has to come back to this region to learn again values and community and things like that it's just completely lost in its systems and laws and things. And a very interesting thing that if you look at indigenous civilizations everywhere, they didn't have laws, they had values. And when those values were broken, people would come together and figure out what to do about it. But this idea of laws is something also, you know, some empires had them and some didn't. But I think that they often worked better when it was more that people inherited the values, and that was their honor, you know. And
I have just a question, Kelvin, about baking bread communally. When I was in Morocco, in Casablanca, in the village near Casablanca, they also did that. Is this then a tradition? Would this be an Arab or Muslim?
Well,
where does this come from? This idea?
I think that because it depends if that is a region that their staple food is bread, then it's easier because bread doesn't stay fresh for a long time. It's easier if one person does it for everybody. And so, you know, I'm not sure. I mean, people used to eat together. If you go to Cairo and you sit down next to somebody who all he's got in the world is a couple of guinea and a plate of fool and a plate of hummus, he will say, welcome to join me and eat. I mean, this is something that eating is something in Islamic culture which is seen as being, you're rude if you eat and other people are hungry. You're rude if you ate the last piece of food on the plate. You know what I mean? It's like there's a sense of like, first of all, everybody eats. After that, we discuss. You know, I mean,
hospitality is amazing. I mean, I've never gone anywhere in Jordan where I wasn't offered tea, coffee, and food. So this is very much part of the culture. And I think if you go back to the ancient Mesopotamian times and the very early history, that people cooked together. They hunted together, then they cooked what they captured together and ate together. So I think that that eating has always been a communal thing. And I often think it's interesting. This is why people love to go to restaurants. I mean, you can eat the same food in your house for much less money, right? But somehow people want to be in this together in a space where other people are also eating.
Yeah, but your big bowls of pasta are the exact example of that. Whenever Jackie has people over, she fills the table with pasta, and it's actually nicer than going to a restaurant.
Thank you. It's my Italian heritage, so you know.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Kevin. You have a fantastic picture. You said you have thousands of pictures.
Well,
I was born. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Kevin, I was born in Golan Heights. We consider Golan Heights and Palestine, you know, Bilad al-Sham. We call the whole region is one area. However, 48 Palestine was occupied, and then 67 you know, Golan Heights was taken, so we refuge. But I lived that lifestyle. I still remember my village. If you show me a picture of my old village, I could say 100% that's mine, because we had one significant school with 5 classrooms right by the end of the village, and my village is the last village with the border of Qunaytara and Israel. I went to school in Damascus, graduated 1980 as a civil engineer, and my intention was, I promised my parents that I'm going to rebuild Golan Heights, but luckily I did work because Israel returned 1973 part of Golan Heights, but it was all destroyed. You couldn't see any type of civilization. So people who saw that land was like, well, these people didn't have anything. So I did work 7 years to rebuild Golan Heights. But do you have any pictures before 1967 of Golan Heights?
Not easily accessible, but if you could send me the name of your village and your email, I will have it.
Sure.
I promise.
Sure, definitely.
I haven't worked on any particularly that I know were the Golan, but I did a meme. If you want to say, I did a meme about the Golan Heights, which was Trump thingy, you know, doing this stupidity in the Golan Heights. I'm wondering if I can find it, because it's been quite effective in helping people to understand what's going on here, because a lot of people from outside the region don't. So, for example, people believe in this Republicans, Democrats rubbish. It's not true. I mean, like, you've got Trump here and Kushner making their hotel in the Golan Heights, and I put this little triangle in the middle there.
I know. I saw that.
But actually, the people digging for oil 2 weeks afterwards were Cheney and Rothschild and Murdoch, which is the same. They're all the same gang. And this is something that I wanted to show people, that this is not, it's not according to the narrative that it is dictated as, of like, there's Netanyahu will go to the UN and say this is for security reasons, and everybody will be, oh, we have to make sure that the first world democracy and all this is secure. Lovely response from Jordan recently, which is that they said we'd accept a one-state solution if it was democratic and everybody was completely equal. And I thought that was lovely, considering all the stuff that they've done in the name of the horrendous stuff they've done in the name of democracy in this region. So that's something anyway.
Any other questions anybody has?
Yeah, is your email with our email group, you think, Kelvin Bown?
It's sideeyecrafts@gmail.com. sideeyecrafts@gmail.com. And I have the page on, if anybody wants to look at my work, the page on Facebook, Instagram, and the YouTube channel. I've got 2 YouTube channels with the same name, is Reawakening the Past. Reawakening the Past. So I'm going to delete my Instagram soon, and possibly my Messenger as well. So my emails do work, and so anybody wants to contact me, that if the messenger goes down, is by Signal app, by my telephone number, which you can get from my email or from Jackie or from anybody.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody comments?
I just wanted to ask Kelvin if he knew the work of Khalil Rad.
Yes. Do you like to see some?
No, I there was a show, I went to a show in Ramallah several years ago where they featured his work. It was fascinating.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's
really
wonderful work. Yeah.
Lived to the ripe old age of 103 and saw.
Really?
Oh yeah. 1854 to 1957.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. Well, I have. Yeah, there is. You can find an awful, a lot of Rad pictures by. Well, Jean-Michel Tarragon has a pretty unique collection, I think, and also I don't know. Do you know where do you find them? Where did you see them displayed from? What was the source?
It was. I'd have to go back and look at the catalog. It was. It was at the Sakakini Center in Ramallah.
Okay. Well, the Pennsylvania Library has just uploaded an enormous amount of photos. The maximum resolution, if you really engineer them to get it down from the website, is quite high, so it's high enough to make prints from. And the Pennsylvania Library has really an extensive collection they got from a huge box of photos, which was donated to them, which, and the whole narrative and everything, the way it's presented, isn't particularly a Zionist tinge, which I was very happy to see, from 1840s to the 1890s. So you're talking about, most of them do not have people in them, but there's an incredible selection of views, a lot of them kind of biblically framed in their how they, how they're presented in this, but really, really interesting. Tiberias and Nazareth and places like this. If you ever want to have a look, the Pennsylvania Archive is a fantastic
And
resource.
Jean-Michel's collection, by the way, is in Lake Biblique, in East Jerusalem, where I was happy to visit him several times there and do research in the library. It's very interesting, I believe. The Franciscans have been very big at archaeology. They were the ones who have done many, they were the ones who worked on the discovery of the baptism site. They've developed Mount Sinai. They've done many important archaeological restorations of the area. Well, Kelvin, thank you so much. Your presentation was brilliant, and I really enjoy your comments on the technique, the digital development, where you can see more now than what was seen in the original photograph. I mean, most people think of when you look at things after a long time, they fades away and you see less. But with your technique, we're seeing more than what was seen in the original
Very
photo.
quickly, I'd show you a very stunning example of how much you can get just by that technique. Just very quickly, I can find it in a couple of seconds, hopefully. I'll just tell you in while I'm doing this, the priest of Madaba gave me a photograph. No, gave me a paper that he wanted. It was a land deed, because you know the priest of Madaba has actually been responsible for building up Madaba. Between Christians and Muslims equally as brothers. He's an incredible man. I love him very, very, very much. And he showed me this old land deed, and it was scribbled with pencil, and you couldn't read it. You just couldn't read it. And I managed to pick out the gradient and pull it out. Now, have a look at this picture here. This is a picture that I got from somebody's confirmation in the church. I actually know that church. And this was the original robe of the priest. Now, I've exaggerated it, so it looks all kind of silvery gray and stuff, but I wanted to show how that pattern here on this side came from that scan.
Wow.
Amazing.
Because micro gradients in the high range here do have enough information. When you play with it, you do a little bit by region, pulling it back into a balance. All those patterns on this guy's robe are in this photograph.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
It's incredible. I mean, like, even me, I'm like, wow, is that really there? But if you pull this apart and you really stretch the white range out, you can find out where those bits of patterns are. Here, you can't see anything. You see, here, you can't see anything. But all that is from that. So that's to show like what is possible today.
This is so important for historical documentation. We're in a region where we don't have that much time to preserve the tradition, because many villages are being destroyed, artifacts are being destroyed, churches, mosques being destroyed. And it really is a question of time. So your work is extremely.
There are a couple of organizations that they say that Palestinian culture overseas, in Palestinian communities outside of Palestine or this region. I don't even want to put names anymore. I just want to go back to it's a desert and look what's actually happened with people and stop calling it things, because it's not working. But there is an organization, I can't remember exactly their name, but I think I can find it, that they bring Palestinian culture to Palestinian communities overseas. And they said that they estimate that 10% of Palestinian culture overseas is getting lost every year.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. They're nice enough people, but
that is extremely interesting and relevant and important. And another and next week we have Phil Hopper, who's below here with us, who's going to did another very important documentation, more contemporary. He has documented the graffiti in Palestine, mostly on the wall, but other places too, and has done a comparison with the graffiti in Belfast, Ireland. So his work is extremely significant and goes into cultural and social history, where you connect the image with the ideas, and the similarity of the ideas of people living under oppression produces a similarity in the imagery. And yet each context is also has its differences. So he will discuss both the parallels, the continuity between the images and the differences that come about from a different context. So Phil, we very much look forward to your presentation.
Looking forward to that.
It should be really great. So I want to thank everybody for presenting today. Kelvin, thank you so much for your work. And I'm going to end by blowing out my candle, which I lit earlier to make each one of us a light, to bring us into deeper understanding of each other as human beings, so that we can learn to live together in peace, harmony, and resolve our differences, and work together with compassion and love to build a just society for all. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Just want to say hi to Phil, because I haven't seen him in forever. I love you so much, Phil.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Really.
Your work is amazing. Your work is really amazing, Kelvin. I have to say.
Everything you do is amazing.
I live with Kelvin.
With it. And well done for being able to, in such a difficult time. Anybody who even just manages to continue the positive works that they're doing is incredible. And I'm sure.
Osama. Hi, Osama.
Yeah, you said.
Kelvin was my roommate for years. Still is has my flat in Jordan. And I mean, I lived with him when he was doing all this work. And he's totally insane, obsessive compulsive. He doesn't sleep. He lives on cigarettes and coffee, and just spends hours and hours and hours and hours doing this stuff. He's totally amazing. So thank you, Kelvin. Thank you.
All right. And if anybody,
thank you, Jackie.
In my prints, my page is up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone. This is my first time, but I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everyone. I will promise I'll join more and pass the word out there to my friends. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Steve, Madiha, nice to see you. Frank.
Thank you, Kelvin. I'm going to
see
email you.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Assalamu.
Keep it going.
You.
Bye.
Bye-bye.